All right, welcome in to Wingin' It Wednesday. Warren Cottle, Stafford Barnett, and the Carol Ross here with her earrings. They're on, so you're not ready to fight quite yet, I guess.
Not yet.
All right. Well, she'll take them off shortly.
When they start jangling, I'll take them. Actually, they're jangling right now.
Yeah, see, they're coming off. All right, so last night, big Lafayette City Parish Council meeting, and I want to start with Warren today on this.
Oh.
We had, are you that surprised? Come on, Warren, you came in with a hat on today.
Oh, yeah.
Of course I got to start with you. You
Yeah.
stand out in the crowd. You're like a male nurse.
Well,
you
yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Anyway, so...
I don't know where you're going with this,
I
but
don't
I
know
like
either.
I don't either.
Yeah,
so
where are you
anyway,
going with
all right.
that?
So anyways,
He's like a male Highlander nurse.
we talked to council members Bruce Conk and also Jay Castillo in the last hour of the show, and kind of one of the highlights of the meeting last night was a resolution by Councilmember Conk to Mayor President Robideau saying, "Tell us what you want. Do you actually want this third-party deal? Do you not?" That kind of, when I was watching it last night, it kind of surprised me because I thought letting it go on as long as it has seemed to be a pseudo-endorsement anyway, but whatever. But they want him to go on the record and say what he wants, because if he doesn't want a third-party deal, then why are we even having this conversation anyway? Your thoughts on all this, Mr. Cottle?
Well, I think, first of all, that the way this whole thing has been handled or mishandled or whatever you want to say is that it has opened up that old proverbial can of worms. And, right now that you got all of these different sides and there's not much transparency in this deal. Let's just say what it is. And, I think they're right in asking that, what exactly are we trying to accomplish? What are you trying to accomplish? And, that they keep asking questions, but it doesn't seem to be a whole lot of answers coming back. Of course, this thing is technically, it's a hostile takeover. It's a tender offer where somebody's come in and says, we want this and we're going after it. And it's just like it is in the corporations, that when those things really got hot back in the 80s and you had all the buyouts and people fighting over this and that and, that they went to a vote of the shareholders. However, with this deal, I don't know that it'll ever go to a vote of the shareholders, which are the citizens of Lafayette. On the other hand, I do think that this thing has an extremely high probability of being done because I think it can be done with the vote of about 4 people.
Interesting. All right, Carol, one of the things that came up in talking about this whole thing, do you think that Robideau is worried? Because when you have someone like Bruce Conk, who has, in general, historically has agreed with him on a lot of things, there are a lot of initiatives.
Well, Bruce is not the only
else.
one who's historically agreed with him on a lot of things. The council has been virtually rubber stamp on anything Robideau's wanted to do. They're frustrated with him on this because he has not been transparent with them. He was negotiating in secret for as long as he could until the word finally got out. That didn't set well. The LPUA is titular head of, overcharge over the utility system, and most of them were kept in the dark. I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 of them knew about it for Mr. Conk. And I actually saw a little pushback from Ms. Hebert, which was a good thing to see, that the employees are up in the air with this kind of thing, and they have no idea. And as she well told Mr. Bernhardt, they don't know you, and nobody knows what their real intent is. They're venture capital company. They don't manage assets. They buy assets. So what are they really buying? What are we getting? What is the whole deal about? There is so much that is so untransparent about this whole thing. And I will tell you, I don't even know if it can pass the LPUA at this point. There is so much pushback from the community on this issue because there has not been the transparency. So I really don't even know if it'll pass that.
I keep going back to the Rotary Club meeting when someone asked about the transparency, and Jim Bernhardt said, well, I walked in and out of City Hall every day. I don't think that's hiding much. Well, people walk in and out of there all the time for different reasons.
Well, frankly, I'll tell you what was disappointing. After the discussion got going, did you hear a peep out of Mr. Robideau? Mr. Robideau checked out. Gave some proclamations, and then he checked out, and they couldn't even our news partners at TV3 tried to get a statement from him. He wasn't there. Tried to get a statement from his spokesperson. Well, they couldn't say anything.
We've
exactly.
tried today, too.
Yeah, I know.
It is very interesting. Stafford, this whole deal has been described as a payday loan. you're getting this huge chunk of change at the beginning, but on the back end, you're losing out on so much revenue if this actually goes through. Are people, the average person who may not have ever known or cared about LUS except, are my lights on? Is my internet working? Do I have TV? Do they just know so much now that they will be the ones to get in the way of this?
I don't think this is going to make it ever out of anything. I don't think it'll make it in front of the LPUA. I don't think it'll make it in front of the council. Look, here's what I took away from last night's meeting, okay? First off, there was no request for proposal. This was unsolicited from Jim Bernhard, period. Nobody on the LPUA said, hey, we want to look at subbing out management, right? So there's no reason to even vote on it. I'm being told that the LPU, it's dead in the water at the LPUA, and that the reason that things were being said at the meeting last night was that because it's never going to make it to a vote in front of the council, ever. And Entergy and all these guys can go spend all the money they want looking at their side of it, too. There is no request for proposal to be voted on. There is no agenda item, okay? And here's my frustration with all of it. I think I had a problem with what Kenneth Boudreaux did last night. I don't know why we need Jeff Landry's opinion as to whether or not it's a decision made by the mayor, the council, or the people, when nobody asked for this information, nobody asked to sub out. There is no plan to sub out the management. It's never been there. Now, with all that being said, I think my favorite part in all this is that you've seen two sides who have been at each other's throats for 2 years now come together. Okay, you've got the anti taxation guys coming out and saying that it's a conspiracy theory to, especially Mark Pope. Mark Pope got there and spent probably 5 minutes saying some of the most unintelligible nonsense I've ever heard in my life. But in the end, he comes out and goes, I don't support this deal. I agree with him on that piece of what he said, right? And then you've got the guy who runs the Sierra Club, who is the opposite of Mark Pope, come out and say, hey, for a long time, we don't think we should be running the plant up in North Louisiana that runs on coal, which only runs on coal half the time, runs on coal and natural gas. We don't think that this is good for us. We think that we can go and make the grid smarter. We think that we can get our costs down. LUS does a great job. So I think it's great that both sides are coming together on it last week, and I think even this week, Carol and I are agreeing on this, which is
it's like 2 weeks in a row. Gosh,
yeah.
Put your earrings back on, Carol.
But I will disagree with you on one thing. We do know where it started because the initial request to the current consultants to the utility system came from Mr. Robideau. He wanted their assessment. So there has been some going back and forth. It's really
we saw
hard.
The white papers, right?
Did somebody think take the politics out of it for a little bit, or at least partially out of it? Yeah. Did somebody think, oh, this is going to be the Holy Grail. We're going to fix everything in Lafayette. It's going to be wonderful, and I'm going to float this idea, or we will float this idea, and then we're going to fix all the roads, and we're going to fix all the drainage.
And pay off the fiber debt.
Right, and pay off all, and it's going to be magical. But then... Did nobody put feelers out? Did nobody put feelers out to find out what the public would have really thought of on that?
You know what, Bernie? That could have been from some people, but I think that it's a money deal. Follow the money. It's a money deal.
If I had to guess, I think that this may have been part of Joel's plan from before he got elected, and this was something that he wanted to get accomplished the whole time. Once you know the history of LUS and what it's done for this community, and you realize that we built a utility system because every other town was getting utilities except us. And when we went to the larger companies and said, hey, we need utilities, they said no. And so we built our own. It's the same thing with high-speed internet access. The LUS is good for the community. There's no reason to sub out management, especially for the chump change that they're throwing out there. And there's not enough money in the world for me to jeopardize the public ownership of this program.
Well,
Warren,
frankly, it goes even deeper than that. The bond issue.
Let's let Warren jump in on this real quick, and then we're going to come back to the bond issue.
Yeah, you're talking about a request for proposal. Nobody asked this, that, and other. But on the other hand, that's where these things are done. I go back to the 80s when Boone Pickens was making his raids on the oil companies and such stuff, and he was playing golf with the chairman of the board of Unical of California. And the press had come out and said that Pickens was going after a big target, and said that while they were on the golf course, the chairman from Unical gets a phone call, and he says, "We are the target." And then that chairman said, "But boom, why didn't you tell me?" He said, "Couldn't tell you." Wow. And so, but anyway, but the point is, when these groups get out there and this thing is there, if they want to go after it, then you say, well, there's not enough money. What's going to happen when somebody really comes in with some serious bucks? Because it's like Ernie said that this thing was supposedly worth $750 million 12 years ago. And then if somebody comes in here and says, yeah, here's what we're going to give you, and you know, then it may become a viable deal.
LUS's stock isn't sold on a public exchange.
I understand that.
So you can't do a hostile takeover.
You certainly can. It's done all the time.
How are you going to go buy out stock at a higher value when there's no stock on an exchange to buy it from, Warren?
All you got to do is who's going to vote to sell this thing?
Nobody. The LPUA has made it clear that they will not go for a vote.
I'm not talking about what LPA has made clear. I'm saying whoever is going to be the final authority on selling this thing or whatever, if you get them on your side, if you get them on your side.
That's why Kenneth wants to know. Because can we make it happen without the will of the people is going to get shoved to the side again? That's why Kenneth is asking for that.
Let me tell you, people need to think long term.
I don't know if that's a factual statement, but
then let me say this. Why would you not ask that question? Number one, and number two, what is going to be the answer?
I would like to reserve comment on that.
Hey, I'd like to do something else I don't typically do either.
Yeah, okay. Well.
Hats off to William Terrio for offering a resolution last night.
At the end. To get a sense of the council, finally get it out on the table.
Let's put it on paper. Let's put it in Joel's court.
Yes.
Joel, you want to play this game?
You got to make a decision.
No. And look, somebody got up last night and said, "Where do I get my vote?" Right? There's two places.
Cardiac rehab. All right, I'm sorry.
There's two places where you get to make your voice heard. Right? When you elect your representative.
Yes.
And if it goes out to the people. Okay. To get it out to the people, it's got to go to the LPUA, and the LPUA's got to send it to the council. Then it goes out to the people. The LPUA has no request for proposal. There's no reason to look at bids. And they heard Jim, and they went, "Hey, buddy, thanks for your presentation. Have a good one."
On the heels of that, then should Robodeau have a press conference and say, if this is the case, if LPUA has no intention of doing this, here is what I want or I don't want.
Let me tell you,
and here's what should happen.
You're right, Bernie, because this is debilitating all the way around. It is really roiling.
The politics just shove that out of the way and not even make it a possibility.
Anybody who works for the city are very, very concerned. Then they got up there, they asked the civil service director. This was the other thing. Asking the civil service director if these civil service people can stay employed as Bernhard employees, and he said no, according to Louisiana law. And Bernhard pulls up some case that we don't even know if that was relevant.
They can do whatever the hell they want.
If it's an appropriate case. But let me say, long term, the damage to this community. This is our biggest asset. Our bond rating will be affected. Our insurance rate will be affected. Our interest rates to borrow money to do any kind of project in this community will be affected. These people need to think long term, and they're not. They're thinking money right now to certain people, and I'm sorry, it really is just as simple as that.
And I'd like to add one more point to that. Joel's not going to have a press conference and say what he wants. And this is why. He got his money to his campaign. He brought it out. He did the bidding of Jim Bernhard, and it's over with. The people said no. So he can go look Jim square in the eye and goes, "Hey, I got your money. I did what you asked. The people said no, it wasn't popular."
Modern day Pontius Pilate.
And it used to be in political campaigns. This would have been forgotten during the next go round. Nobody would have remembered this in the next go round.
Or remember this in November.
What, 10% of people wouldn't for the next time Robo does that for election. Now it doesn't work that way anymore. Okay? So does this end up giving a big old punch in the gut to Robodeau come election time for him?
Yeah, I want to say something very quickly because I do disagree with Stafford on this. Mark Pope has seen this from inside the city and outside the city. He was one of those people who never fell in love with his position. He felt that he was a public servant and I got many comments before I ever started working with Mark here, how Mark was very responsive to the people who understood what his job was, etc. He understands what's going on in this community far better than a lot of people do from a long-term standpoint, and I think he spoke from the heart. last night and made some very good comments and to try to make people understand about where our community is going and do we want it to go in a certain direction. We have to be really careful about these decisions we make now. They have implications for the future.
So nobody answered my question. Does this have an impact the next time Robideau's up for re-election?
I think so. Maybe he won't run again. Maybe he won't run again.
I think the whole reason he took a position on the Drag Queen Story Hour thing was to take the bat out of Terrio's hand when he runs for mayor. And then Terrio just put the bat back in his hand by putting Joel on his line. So look,
pass the bat. Yes,
everything that Joel does, it makes sense when you sit back and you look at it through the eyes of politics. He's got somebody. I don't think he's listening to good advisors. I think he's listening to campaign managers who's saying, if you just do this and you do this, you can do this. And so, But now is that guy wrong? Do you think it affects? Wrong? Well, whoever the campaign manager might be. Is that guy wrong for the next time? Listen, the unfortunate thing is,
does this impact the next time Robideau comes up for election?
I think that it gives Terrio something to beat him over the head with. I don't think that Terrio's going to beat him, but I think it gives Terrio something to beat him up with.
All right, we've got to take a quick break here. It's 7:27 on Wingin' It Wednesday. Thanks to our panelists, of course. And, of course, we always take your phone calls at 232-1542. Quick break here, and we're back with more next.
All right, we have a report of a traffic crash, Cully-Saloom Road at Ramblewood. That's Cully-Saloom Road at Ramblewood. Ambassador Caffrey at Gilbo. That's Ambassador at Gilbo. Also, Pinhook at South College. Pinhook at South College, please buckle up. Keep it safe out there.
7:29 now at Newstalk 96.5. KPEL, I don't think we're going to...
Oh, he's working for tips.
Hey, man.
Wait,
that sounded awful.
We're in a segment now.
Look, Stafford.
Okay, you can go.
He don't care. He's like, hey, man, when coffee calls, but can you kind of understand that?
Yes.
He wants coffee talk.
I get it.
When you need a coffee talk. When you need a coffee.
You got to have a coffee.
Back, I remember in June, July, even as we were wrapping up all those special sessions and everything we had, we knew the end of the year was going to be crazy because we knew what election was already happening. We didn't know yet about the sheriff's tax. We didn't know yet about quote-unquote deconsolidation. Now we have there's just so much for people to keep track of.
Let me tell you, I would remind everyone that deconsolidation is a minefield as well. I mean, there is no guarantee that anybody from the unincorporated area will be elected to anything, including the parish council.
Do you think, or what do you think it means for turnout? Are people going to just be kind of over it?
I don't know. This utility thing may get people really riled up. That may get them out to vote. And the way I see it, they're not going to vote for too much. But let us get back to the connection that has been made with Mike Michaud and Tyron Picard. If you all remember, during the transition, they were handling the transition for Mr. Robideau, and they got excoriated by the Independent saying that it doesn't look too good to have lobbyists and political animals handling your transition. It would be a better message to have someone not so politically connected to your campaign, because obviously you might do business with the city. And they well said, we'll never do business with the city. And I well said online to Mr. Picard, you are doing business with the city. You handle the airport commission. The airport commission answers to the consolidated government. No, Ms. Ross, you should do your research. The area mayors appoint most of the airport. No, Mr. Picard. There are 7 members on that airport commission. 5 of them are appointed by the mayor president, 1 by the area mayors, and 1 by the consolidated council. That's the way it goes. Their budgets go up to the mayor president for approval or review or whatever. He sends it on to the council. That's the way it's supposed to be. I don't know if they still do that. So anyway, that got dropped. But so that was bad harbinger for what was going to happen in this administration, Stafford, in my opinion.
Is there any way in the state of Louisiana which is really known for this sort of thing statewide? We would love to not see it happening right in our backyard, but we know the history of politics in Louisiana. Is there any way to control this sort of thing? If that is what happened, if from the start Mayor President Robideau wanted to do this was something he wanted to have done, is there any way to kind of make something, put up some sort of gate so that there is some sort of gatekeeper so this thing doesn't happen? Is there a way to do that?
When you say this sort of thing, you talk about the cell of the management? Yeah, I mean, we have that gate, and it's the LPUA, and that's their job. And they're elected representatives, and they've heard Jim's pitch. And it seems like everybody so if I'm not mistaken, it's Kenneth, Liz, Bruce, and Nanette.
Patrick. Nanette Cook, Liz Hebert, Patrick, and Kenneth, and
So Pat's like a flag, right? If you blow on it hard enough, that's the way he's going to vote, right?
Oh, my gosh.
He does not know what he's going to do until like somebody shows up and yells enough, and then he goes. I've had a change of heart when he didn't know where his heart was pointed in the first place. Okay, Liz has said, I don't understand why all this stuff is happening. Joel has gone and kind of done this out on his own. We didn't ask the Bernhardts for anything, and Bruce has made it clear that he's got zero interest in doing anything. Nanette tends to typically follow whatever Joel does. Nanette loves Joel. And I don't know what Kenneth is doing right now, and I'm hesitant to say how I really feel about what was said last night with what Kenneth did. But I don't think that the LPUA gets it out, and then normally the board goes 7-2 on anything. I don't see Terrio, and for the life of me, I can't think of my councilman's name right now, but
where do you live?
I live right outside of Liz's district, down past
Bellard.
Are you Jared Bellard? Yeah, you're Bellard.
Bellard.
To see Bellard, Terrio, and Bruce and Liz on the same page about something was pretty refreshing last night. So I think we have the right gate in place. I think that, and I warned this last week, whenever you do stuff like this, whenever you allow these guys to start meddling in our issues, the amount of money, Jim Bernhard's a billionaire with a B, and that's his money. It's not tied up. It's liquid. For him to go drop $10 million to try to sway the people of this community is nothing. It's a drop in the bucket. When you think about what kind of money, if he's willing to pay $140 million now, right, and then we have some dummy at LSU tell us that if we put $140 million into bonds, we'll have $1.4 billion 40 years from now, like it won't get spent. Think about what that money is going to do for him. Right, and I don't have a problem with venture capitalists. I don't have a problem with people who will go buy companies and do great things with them. But I have a problem with this somebody coming in our community and trying to take something that everybody here owns and saying that we're not doing it well when that is absolutely incorrect, and then trying to take it from us so that they can put the money in their pockets.
Warren, let's look ahead. Next year we're going to have a pretty high-profile governor's race, and Jim Bernhard's name has come up multiple times. Recently, he has said, no, it's just a rumor, not doing it, not going to get into the race. This whole thing, I think, for as long as the people who are alive and voting and everything right now, no one's going to like him in Acadiana.
Well, I mean, I don't know that. I think you're right, but I don't think he wants to be governor.
Mm-mm.
He's doing things he wants to do now, I would think. And but look, let's go back to your question about the gatekeepers and how things are done, how they used to be done, and all that. The way it's normally done in Louisiana, somebody comes up and wants to do this, and you go to the governor, you go to whoever the head political person is, and you say, look, this is what I want to do. And y'all make your deal, and then basically it gets done. And so it's kind of the same way with this deal. We keep talking about LPUA not going to go with this, the council's not going to go with this, and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And somebody comes in here with a whole sack full of money and sells that thing where the citizens are going to be better off. You're going to get all of this, that, and other.
Gee, didn't we have something quite like that? Wasn't there a company a year or so ago that we were all talking about, even on this show, and there was some deal, and the customers would have a price freeze and went to the Public Service Commission?
Was that CGI or whatever?
No.
This was in another community.
Clico, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so.
And Clico's been taken over by McCary, and they are the co-owner of the Boys. One of the most interesting things that came up last night was, Harold Scheffler is the head of the Sierra Club, and we have butted heads on a number of things. But it was an interesting comment that he brought up that he I think it was either at the request of Foster Campbell or he requested to sit in on some of these meetings about the plant in Boyce, because we are partners with LIPA and Clico. Mm-hmm. We own about half of it, I believe, and they own 30%. Clico owns 30%, whatever. He said in all of those meetings, no one could understand why no one was representing the city of Lafayette. Nobody was representing Lafayette Utility System. He went to all those meetings. They were a no-show, and nobody could answer the question. And as far as Clico, they have sent a letter. They would like to bid on it. Entergy has made it known they would like to bid on it. But what Mr. Scheffler said was that the interest that was expressed in buying our interest in the Boyce plant, and we could take that money and actually reinvest in our utility system and keep it within here and not have to be dependent on a transmission grid if we produce if we generate our electricity right here, because we do have the facilities to do it if they upgrade them.
Look, back to the gatekeeper thing. Liz Webb said point blank last night, it's time to put it to bed and move forward.
Mm-hmm.
She has zero interest, and she's the head LPUA. Zero interest in selling it.
We got that impression last week when we talked to her on our show.
Well, I think, they're all frazzled. I mean, they're all hanging out there all this time.
Because it's being made to look like the LPUA wanted it first.
Mm.
And I think they're very clear to say, nope, the council didn't want this first. The LPUA didn't want this first.
This came from Mr. Robideau.
In this day and age, people who are out there looking at campaigns and the way things are done, I think some of this old school stuff that, we're going to move it, we're going to shake it, we're going to razzle and dazzle them, because if we razzle and dazzle them, we can do our other stuff over here. It doesn't work that way anymore.
And the reason Mr. Bernhard will not...
I said last week when I heard Liz Webb Hebert on here talking about she was assured that nothing was going to change, that everybody was going to keep their job and all that, and I said on any of these deals, any of them, when somebody says nothing's going to change, quit listening.
Exactly.
Because
but she also followed up,
change or they wouldn't be buying it.
And
so
she quickly followed up saying that, there's no guarantee
I don't care. I'm talking about Liz Webb Hebert. She's going to make those she's going to make those kind of statements. And what you said, fragile or whatever, the right person hasn't sat down and talked to her.
Mm. And Mr. Bernhard is a Democrat. He will never run against John Bell.
739 now.
If I was Jim Bernhard, why would I ever run for office?
Correct.
I got billions. But
people made that.
Ross Perot, Michael Bloomberg, all these other people.
Donald Trump.
They didn't run for governor of Louisiana.
Donald Trump's not a billionaire.
Well, I'm just saying, Donald Trump, independently successful. There is something that people who want
control
to do
and power.
Well, there's one on the Republican side doing it, Eddie Raspone.
Look, and here's the irony. Like, they've tried to play so many bad cards on us about this, too. Well, if LUS says no, we're looking at other places too.
Right.
What a stack of.
But when you ask what the place is,
we can't tell you that.
We can't talk about. Oh, well, just go ahead and get that mayor to ask for a legal opinion as to whether or not he can sell it out from under the people.
740,
and then we'll know.
We're back with more.
I guess it's going to Turkey Creek or Ville Platte or something. I don't know.
All right, there's more Wingin' It Wednesday coming up on the show. We have several other issues to get to, and of course, your phone calls at 232-1542. One story we've been watching kind of on the national / I guess kind of international stage is this issue with the reporter, the writer, I guess, who was killed in the Saudi embassy in Turkey. It kind of goes back to the whole thought, and we were just talking about this. It kind of struck me some of the similarities with anyone who's in elected office, if they come from business or if they come from anything else before that, they're always going to have relationships. The one currently, and we'll start with you, Stafford, has to do with President Trump's earlier dealings with Saudi Arabia, and does this cloud, kind of what's going on, this investigation into this. I don't even think, have they officially called it a murder, or is it still that he's missing but he's believed to be dead?
Saudi Arabia is preparing to say that he was apparently killed by somebody a rogue group. But here's the problem.
Yeah.
Turkey hates Saudi Arabia and has logged everything. So they've got copies of the passports who came in, their known affiliations.
We know the planes that landed.
They've got the recordings. So came out this morning. There's a recording of the consulate general sitting outside the consulate saying, "Hey, if you cut his fingers off inside my building, it's gonna be a problem. Please do it outside." So they knew that he was being tortured and that he was probably being killed. Look, we're in a time right now where the press is not being afforded some of the protections and being treated the way that it's been historically treated, right? There's a reason that the founding fathers put the freedom of the press into the Constitution. There are gatekeepers and our fact checkers. And think about, and to tie back to the LUS deal, think about the current releasing the story about Joel Robideau asking for an opinion as to who gets to decide on getting rid of or subbing out management.
Yeah.
Right. So we live in a time where the press is under siege, and in Saudi Arabia there is no freedom of the press. This man was a resident of the United States. He was not. I don't think he was an American citizen. Was a resident of the United States. A writer for the Washington Post, and he was tortured to death. And it looks like we're not going to do anything about it. And there was a time when we had the American military had two things. The United States of America had two things. They have the biggest military in the world. We still have that, right? And we were, at times, the arbiters of morality, which I know I'm going to get beat up for that. But we held people accountable. And I believe that there was a time where our presidents would have gone to Saudi Arabia and said, you got to do something about this. This is not okay. We're going to sanction you.
So hasn't that technically been done with the Secretary of State's visit?
So if you listen to what happened at the Secretary of State's visit, he was asked afterwards, did Saudi Arabia admit that they did it? And he wanted to say either way. I think that this administration is giving them cover. And let's not forget who Saudi Arabia is, right? Saudi Arabia funded 9/11, okay? These are not good people. They're not friends of America. That we want their money and they want ours, and that's it. And because of that, we've allowed them to go bomb kids' school buses in Yemen with our bombs. They've done it twice now, killed 50 kids at a time. They've bombed hospitals. We're fighting a proxy war for them in Yemen. We're selling them all the stuff to do it with. And Donald Trump's biggest concern was whether or not we're going to continue to sell arms to Saudi Arabia, right? So my frustration, and I hope, look, I don't agree with a lot of what Lindsey Graham says. Lindsey Graham says we're going to come out and sanction them, and he said, hey, we're going to go after these people, and I hope that they do. That man had a family. He was a father. He was tortured to death inside the Turkish embassy, or I'm sorry, inside the Saudi embassy. The consul fled, right? He immediately got out once he realized what was going on. And it's an ugly, ugly time to be a reporter in the United States.
Is it just, Carol, kind of the need for instant gratification? We know that a lot of things, especially diplomatically, takes time, and maybe
stability in the region is also
and maybe Pompeo isn't going to come out and say exactly what they said because they're still working on some other things as well. But we are in such a time where we want to know now. We want to know what happened, and we want to know what you're going to do yesterday. And it just doesn't happen that fast. Is that the inherent flaw that we have right now in the expectation?
That part of the world is a very dangerous part of the world. We need a big ally over there, and the biggest ally with the most money is Saudi Arabia to push back against Iran, who is another bad actor. And so, yeah, Yemen is the proxy war for that. And with the Iranians getting all that money from our former president and still proceeding with their nuclear program, there's a lot of unease about what's going on in the Middle East and what our role with Saudi Arabia should be. This is a terrible situation. The president has said he wants to all the facts. But, you know, there are a lot of congressmen up there, too, who have defense contractors in their districts. It's not just the president pushing back on this. It's a lot of congressmen also. I do think there are going to be some sanctions. There are going to be, I believe there will be some payback for this kind of things. But Khashoggi is not necessarily, he's not the one to go to war over either. His brother is one of the biggest arms dealers, I think, in the Middle East. He's had kind of a spotty past. What happened? That no one should have that happen to them.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some horrific reports coming out of the Middle East, but we do have to remember that the Turks hate the Sauds, and they will do anything to damage Saudi Arabia and drive a wedge between the United States and Saudi Arabia, because that only sets them up.
Warren, does it make a difference, or would it make a difference, what conversation we'll be having today if this was an American?
It could, but just go back, to talk about the way things used to be and all this, that, and other. The way things used to be, I think that most of them would just simply say, we don't have a dog in this fight. He was a citizen of your country. He was killed over somewhere else, and the people who did that inside that consulate have diplomatic immunity, and so case closed, or we would have just totally gone to war. With those things, we used to go to war over a lot of things, that other people say, why are we doing this? But let's go back, talking about Saudi Arabia and their influence and all that. They have had a huge influence in this country since going back probably to the 30s, whenever oil was first discovered over there, and on and on and on. But the two biggest players that have been in Saudi Arabia's back pocket were George H.W. Bush, and who they owned, and then his dumb son, George W. Bush, who they actually, I think, got a title on him filed somewhere, and talking about they funded 9/11 and all that stuff. Stafford comes out with those conspiracy theories every once in a while, and it may be close to truth. I mean, most of the people came from there. They've got dirty money everywhere, and that you go back to talking about old man Bush, and he was with the Carlyle group, who Bin Laden's father was part of that group, and they had all that Saudi money in there and such stuff as that. And so, look, it's a convoluted thing, and is this really worth us going to battle against Saudi Arabia?
It's Khashoggi when we want to fall on the sword over.
Well, we're going to make a little headway. We're going to get out there and we're going to jump up and down and scream and holler. And in the end of it, we're going to say, hey, we don't give a damn what you do.
All right, so you want to wrap this one up for us?
I'd like to kind of add to what Warren said. The man who runs Saudi Arabia, what's his name? Right, I don't remember his name. Was quoted as saying that he's got Jared Kushner in his back pocket. So, he's the one who's been out facilitating this stuff, who has supported him through the atrocities that we've seen happening in Saudi Arabia here lately with the locking up the royal family, the bombing in Yemen, and so on and so forth. So we're in a very weird time. Look, I agree that the Bushes were at the will of Saudi Arabia. I disagree with Carol, what Carol said about needing an ally there. We've got Israel right there as well. At some point, we have to take a step back and say we value the work that reporters do. So,
all right, we're gonna.
He was more than just a reporter. I mean, he was in bed with the government. He worked for the agency over there. Nobody knows really what
he covered. Yeah, he covered Middle East issues. Yes, it was Washington Post, but he wasn't sitting in Washington.
By the way, we knew what was going to happen. We had the reports of what was going on, and we didn't warn them.
It's an interesting story. I'm sure it's not going to be the end of it. 7:55 now at News Talk 96.5. KPEL will wrap up on a high note. The Mega Millions jackpot jumps to $868 million.
I just want you people to remember, today is October the 17th. On Wingin Wednesday.
Are you going to win that?
Oh, I'm winning. I'm going to win the Powerball tonight, and then
tomorrow or
Friday.
Millions
on Friday night.
Adios, amigos.
And here's why I know: because on Wednesday, October the 17th, Stafford Barnett agreed with something William Terrio said.
Yeah.
So
we didn't even get around to the busing the people to the polls.
That was on purpose. It's done with that ship. That ship has sailed. It's not going to happen.
I wasn't sure what he said there for a minute.
Attorney General.
Was he talking about a vessel or something else?
It's going to be
Attorney General says no, it can't happen. So we'll be discussing it probably next year.
Let me just say this real quick. When that story first came out, I called Jeff Landry, and he called me right back, and he said, I can't do it for you. It has to be from a public body or senator or representative, whatever. He said, what I will do is I'll research it. And sure enough, he sent back the 1996 opinion from Ayub that clearly stated this was electioneering. Mm-hmm. Then they come out and say, well, we're not going to run the buses to the polls. It's just going to be our regular routes. Well, that's even dumber. I mean, if your stated purpose is to increase voter participation, why,
Hey, take an Uber or a Lyft. They're giving away free rides that day.
Yeah, Uber and Lyft is going to be free that day.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
All right, it's 8:56. Thanks, guys. Warren Cottle, Stafford Barnett, and Carol Ross. You can listen to the Ross Report this afternoon at 2 o'clock.
Y'all are beautiful
right here on News Talk
people.
96.5 KPEL.